No one noticed the change in flavour. That was the first mistake. The banquet did not begin with excess, but with order. The long oak table had been prepared since dawn, polished until it reflected the candlelight, cutlery aligned, crystal glasses set, plates warmed before receiving the food. The lord of the estate valued precision. He believed discipline began with the way guests took their seats. It was a restrained celebration. There was no loud music, no exaggerated toasts, only neighbouring landowners, 2 local officials, and the village doctor. A gathering designed to affirm status, not to draw attention. A dinner where everything was meant to appear normal. In the kitchen, Mary kept her head down. She had worked there for years. She knew the rhythm of the ovens, the exact timing of each dish, the temperament of the old pans. No one questioned her presence. Cooks were not remembered. They were required. Invisible when the meal pleased, blamed when something went wrong. Mary was in no hurry. The seed was not common. It did not grow in cultivated fields or in the gardens near the house. It came from a discreet plant, ignored by anyone who did not know what to look for. In small quantities, it caused no immediate pain. It did not burn the tongue, did not alter the texture of the food. It simply blended in. She had learned this long before arriving at the estate. At the beginning of the dinner, everything unfolded as expected. Mild conversation, remarks about harvests, subtle criticism of those not present. The lord of the estate spoke more than he listened. He was pleased. The first course was served, then the second. Wine circulated but moderately. Nothing seemed out of place. It was with the third course that something changed. One of the guests laughed a little too loudly. Another interrupted a sentence without noticing. The doctor frowned, as if trying to recall something simple and failing halfway through the thought. Small deviations, easy to ignore. The lord of the estate did not like deviations. He remarked that the wine might be stronger than usual. Asked for water. The conversation continued, but now with odd pauses, silences that did not belong in the room. One of the officials began repeating the same story, using slightly different words each time, as though trapped in an invisible loop. Mary watched from the kitchen doorway. There was no haste, no anxiety, only attention. The seed did not cause immediate collapse. It altered something more subtle, perception, the sense of continuity. The body remained upright, but the mind began to slip. Thoughts came and went without warning. Emotions surfaced without clear cause. The fourth course was served. At that point the laughter stopped. The atmosphere grew heavy. One guest pressed a hand to his head as if feeling pressure from within. Another stood for no apparent reason, walked to the window and remained there, staring into the darkness. The lord of the estate tried to regain control. He asked the doctor a direct question. There was no immediate answer. He repeated it louder. The doctor blinked slowly, as if waking from a bad dream. He replied with something incoherent, mixing medical terms with personal memories. Silence spread around the table. It was not panic yet. It was collective discomfort, the sense that something was wrong, but no one could identify what. The kind of unease that corrodes confidence, not the body. For the first time, the lord of the estate felt a sharp flicker of insecurity. He summoned a servant, ordered the wine to be checked, then the food. The kitchen was inspected superficially. Nothing appeared out of place. Mary's expression remained neutral. Her hands stayed busy. Clean pans, orderly surfaces. There was no proof of anything. By the time the fifth course arrived, the dinner had become something else entirely. One guest began to cry without warning. There was no clear sadness, no reason, just tears, slow, persistent. Another rose abruptly, knocking over his chair, and accused someone of conspiring against him, unable to explain who or why. The lord of the estate struck the table. The gesture was weaker than he intended. His voice faltered halfway through the command. He felt something strange, as though his own words no longer fully belonged to him. He tried to focus, thought of discipline, of authority, of routine. Nothing held. The doctor attempted to intervene, but his hands were shaking. He spoke of contamination, of a collective reaction, of hysteria, yet even he did not fully believe what he was saying. Something was too wrong to be purely psychological and too subtle to be a common illness. Outside the dining room, servants gathered, curious, unsettled. The atmosphere had shifted. This was no longer a banquet. It was an unstable space where the usual rules seemed suspended. Mary closed the kitchen door carefully. The seed did not choose individual victims. It dissolved boundaries. What one felt, the others began to feel as well. Fear without cause, anger without target, confusion without a clear origin. Madness, when shared, ceases to look like madness. And at that table, the lord of the estate began to realize something he had never accepted before. He was not alone in control. He never had been. The banquet ended without any formal conclusion. No one said their farewells properly. There were no final toasts, no speeches of gratitude. The guests left the room at different times, guided more by discomfort than by decision. Some needed help to walk, others insisted on speaking, but their sentences dissolved before reaching the end. The lord of the estate remained seated longer than he should have. He stared at the remains of the meal, as though expecting something there to explain itself. The candlelight felt excessive. The sound of forgotten cutlery on the table echoed strangely. His head throbbed, not with physical pain, but with accumulated confusion. He ordered that no one speak of what had happened. By the next morning, the order proved useless. The guests did not return to their estates as content men. They returned unsettled. One accused his own servants of spying. Another refused to leave his room for days. The doctor, embarrassed, began to doubt his own diagnosis. He spoke of nervous reactions, fatigue, coincidence. No one fully believed him. Rumors began to circulate, not as direct accusations, but as a shared sensation. Something had happened in that house. Something wrong, something that did not fit simple explanations. The word banquet began to be spoken with caution. Future invitations were declined with polite excuses. The lord of the estate sensed the isolation before anyone mentioned it openly. Visits ceased. Correspondence grew shorter. Replies took longer to arrive. A man who prided himself on influence began to feel the weight of social silence. Nothing had been proven, nothing denounced, yet something had broken. Inside the estate, the effect ran deeper still. The overseer tried to keep routine intact, but the servants were uneasy. They whispered more, made simple mistakes. Some claimed to hear things at night, others complained of confused thoughts, strange dreams. The atmosphere felt contaminated by a diffuse anxiety. The lord of the estate summoned the doctor again. He wanted answers. He wanted control. He demanded a clear cause. The doctor examined him, asked questions, took pulses, observed reactions. He found nothing he could put into a report without sounding foolish. "Perhaps the problem isn't in the body," he said at last carefully. The remark was not well received. The lord of the estate began to distrust everything. The food, the servants, his own thoughts. He changed suppliers, replaced utensils, altered menus. Nothing helped. The sense of lost control remained. Mary continued working. No one questioned her. No one connected the quiet cook to the social collapse spreading like an invisible stain. She did what she had always done, prepared simple meals, followed schedules, cleaned surfaces. Her presence attracted no attention, but she watched. The seed left no physical trace. It did not poison, it did not kill. It merely exposed what already existed. Baseless arrogance, excessive confidence, a structure built more on appearance than solidity. With the usual guests gone, the lord of the estate tried to reassert authority internally. He became stricter, more suspicious. His orders shifted from one day to the next. What was allowed in the morning became punishable by afternoon. That eroded respect. There was no open rebellion. There was wear, slowness, small failures accumulating, a system that once functioned through fear now failed through confusion. Months later, a local representative arrived for an informal visit. There was no official complaint, just institutional curiosity. He spoke with the lord of the estate, observed the surroundings, asked neutral questions. He noticed the nervousness. He noted inconsistencies, said little. Left without promises, the effect was immediate. The lord of the estate began to fear future inspections. He spent resources trying to anticipate problems, hired too many people, dismissed too many, created instability where rigidity had once ruled. The estate entered a slow decline, almost elegant in its quiet unraveling. Mary did not stay to see the end. Her name disappeared from the records after some time. Some said she had been transferred, others that she fell ill. There was no interest in investigating. Cooks do not leave important traces in official files. What remained was the blurred memory of that dinner, an event no one could fully explain. A moment when men accustomed to command lost clarity in front of one another. A banquet that caused no immediate scandal, but patiently eroded reputations. Because collective madness does not need shouting. It simply removes certainty piece by piece, and when certainty is gone, power stands naked. If you made it this far, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Stay with us. The next story is already appearing on your screen.